And so that's why it's failing. So it's a trust issue because you can't trust either the AI or your employees to be applying good judgment. So that is the critical issue. Here's the thing. AI is useless without relevant, valid data. So the more relevant, valid data you give it, the more useful AI is.
Good day, everyone. I'm now here with another episode of 10x AI with Jules Neal. I'm here with Alex Todd. He has years of experience in technology. He is now the founder of Reliably, and he has several experiences, including the blockchain. Alex, can you introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Todd. I'm founder and CEO of Reliably Me. It's a tech startup, and delighted to be here, Julius. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Can you tell us what is Reliably about? And how does it help your clients?
So what we're building is a trust enablement system, and it's a hands-on. It's designed to affect person-to-person trust and follow through at an infrastructure level. And so what it does is it allows people to make commitments to each other, and it automatically follows through with nudges and to help track their progress with respect to whether they were in training and as a follow-up to training, or how are they applying the training and so on, or if it's if somebody's onboarding, it follows through as to how they're coming along with their own onboarding processes and so on. So it's a kind of a lightweight behavioral evidence system that kind of shortens the distance between intent and execution.
So you started with the training first, and then what are the other applications of this Reliably?
So it's really, we use it with our interns, for example. So they make commitments to me and to each other to that they're going to fulfill certain tasks. They make commitments that they're going to respond to a nudge every Monday with their plan for the week, every Sunday with what they've accomplished for the week, every Thursday with their progress update for the week, and so on and so forth. There's lots of these things, and they receive these automated nudges. Then we collect a tremendous amount of qualitative and quantitative data from them, because every time they fulfill a commitment, they get a badge. The badge populates their commitment portfolio. That also calculates the reliability rating, punctuality score, confidence factor, engagement points. And then on top of that, the nudging, you can ask any kinds of questions or requests, and they have to respond to those. So you can get a lot of sentiment analysis and qualitative data. So we combine a great deal of qualitative and quantitative data from every individual. And then, in fact, when we're doing performance evaluations for their school, for example, all we have to do is feed all that data into an AI, including their school evaluation form, and it automatically fills out all their evaluations. So it's a very reliable, it's fair, equitable, objectives and evidence-based. So it's a very tremendous time saver, and also gives me a lot of confidence that I'm being fair with everybody.
Wow, it's a very good platform for especially when you have these nudges and then badges, and then how does the user follow up on this, and then what is the reporting look like, because it's a combination of qualitative and quantitative.
Exactly. So we have, first of all, real time as people respond to nudges. I get real-time feedback as to through SMS, WhatsApp, or a mobile app as to how they're responding to those nudges. So first of all, you get real-time data. Secondly, you have generate reports from our administrative console, which are reports on all the commitments that are being made and the status of various commitments and so on, and the schedules and all those things. And finally, there's reports on the actual qualitative data, which is essentially you're running reports on the questions that were asked through nudges and their responses, and then you can do analysis on that, either through spreadsheets or feeding it into AI. So we typically feed all that data into AI, and then it automatically figures it out.
Wow. So that AI model is your proprietary model, right?
No. The AI is generic. What's proprietary to us is this person-to-person, commitments-based accountability and behavior modification system. So our system gathers the data and engages. It's an engagement system, so it rewards people for follow-through with badges and the rely and so on. So that their commitment portfolio acts as an evidence-based supporting credential to validate their experiential learning, for example, whatever it is that they're doing. So that's the proprietary part, engagement and data generation. And then we use generically AI for the reporting. We also use AI, by the way, for natural language processing. So we're integrated with Slack. So
Mm-hmm.
when people write messages in Slack, which we use as our primary platform, a communication platform, it automatically detects if there's a commitment intention, either explicit or implicit. So either where somebody's
Mm-hmm.
saying that they will do something or they're asking somebody else to do something, and it will automatically pop up and say, hey, do you want to formalize that offer or request? And if
Mm-hmm.
it responds positively, then the counterparty gets a DM asking them to confirm. And so that way, all these casual commitments that are kind of floating around in communications get captured, right?
That's really quite complicated for me because I don't know how it works, the frameworks, but it's very, very useful, especially if you are, if this space. And also, like for example, the intern, what is the progress of the intern? Are they engaging or not? What are the qualitative analysis when it comes to their behaviors, and then the quantitative and quantitative analysis in their, for example, in their work. How do you do the KPIs? What are the targets that they have done? I know it's very complicated, especially if you're doing it manually. But using AI and then your proprietary platform, the 40-hour man hours work, maybe it could be 30 minutes or 15 minutes.
Oh, yes, it's huge, huge time saving, and also accuracy, right?
Yeah, yeah, and also, and yeah, the hardest part of doing a collating the data is the accuracy of the data, and then the data interpretation as well. So that, because if the data is not accurate, then your interpretation will also be inaccurate, right? So that's the result of that. And then you said that the future of work depends on trust and accountability, which you already told us a while ago, not just technology. What are the leaders mostly still getting it wrong about AI transformation today?
Well, the big problem with the use of AI right now is that either people are, first of all, afraid to use it and not using it. So that's one extreme. And the other extreme, they're using it for everything, that and they have no idea. They're not qualified to do what they're. So in other words, it allows them to act as if they are experts in something when they have no idea whether the answers that they're getting from AI are actually valid because they don't have any background. You tell them
Yeah.
anything, you believe it, and then then they just use it to get things done, and they propagate these hallucinations or maybe just inaccuracies because they're not using it properly and not using judgment
Yeah.
to assess what actually is this stuff that they're
They
getting
yeah. Yeah. They take it
irrelevant.
as it is.
So we're human. We're lazy, right? So we're either lazy to adopt something new, or if we find something that's going to make life easier for us, then we can use it in a reckless way. I mean, think about, using a chainsaw for the first time. It could be quite dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, right now, many companies are always saying, okay, a lot of the company will say, we have an AI strategy, but most of them still fails, even they have this AI strategy. So from your perspective, why do AI initiatives break down at the human level, not the technical one?
Well, it is the human. That is the entire problem is the human level. How people don't use or use the AI. Are they qualified to use it properly? And can the organization trust what it is that's being delivered to their as a product, as an artifact from that employee? Because you're assuming now that they've done the work, and yes, okay, we're encouraging you to use AI, but is this purely just AI, or are you actually in the loop? To what extent? And so that's why it's failing. So it's a trust issue because you can't trust either the AI or your employees to be applying good judgment. So that is the critical issue. And so because it's not deterministic, like any kind of like a spreadsheet, you write a formula, you're always going to get the same result, right? So any kind of program. But with AI, even there, you're always getting some variability depending on how you phrase the question or what kind of prompt you use. So even small variations can make a big difference in the answer. And so the organizations are not used to this kind of unpredictability or uncertainty. They want to know exactly what goes in and what's going to come out in a repeated way consistently. So there's a lot of issues, but most of them come down to behavior, human behavior.
Okay. So what can you say about the companies now who are some companies they allow they allow the employees using AI? For example, in your company also. But what can you say about the companies who said no, we're not going to use AI?
I think I would say that if a company says they're not going to use AI, that would be a red flag for me if I was an investor.
Because the argument is always data security, data breach, all this privacy and all this, so that they don't want the documents or the trade secrets of the company to go outside. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So,
confidential.
so my argument is that yes, the concerns are it's human nature to fear uncertainty, something new, and you fear what's going to happen. That's human nature. It's normal. There's a lot, companies have a reputation risk. They have a lot at stake. They can't take risks very easily. So I've gone and seen the cycles of, when email was introduced and that wasn't allowed in companies because of secrets going out to other people. And then also with cloud computing, so what do you mean you're going to take my computers and my data and put it somewhere? Who knows where it is, right? How are we going to trust
Yeah.
that? So, and the reality of the world is that we adapt to it. We understand that these providers of these services have brand promises they have to maintain. If that brand promise erodes, then then their market value erodes and they lose customers. So they can't afford to have missteps. Now, mistakes happen, don't get me wrong, but I mean, generally the systems that they're putting in place are to protect you, particularly because they have to protect their own brand, right? So having said that, you can, so if you're using external services, yes, but there's also other considerations that are very valid as well. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have governance in place that is, has guardrails as to how things can be used. For example, there is a very powerful new AI agent that has just been released a few days ago, and
Okay.
it's hitting the world by storm. And essentially, it's changed its name 3 times in the past 3 weeks, or 2 weeks even. It started. Most people know it as Claudebot. Then it renamed to Maltbot, and now I think it's called OpenClaw. OpenClaw. All lobster themes, and
Uh-huh.
and so they what it does is it's open source. It runs on your computer locally, and it can control your entire computer and everything that you do.
What?
And
Okay.
it's so powerful and so scary and so smart. I can't get into a lot of detail. I'm just going right now in a conversation with a colleague who he and I are evaluating, and are both afraid of implementing it in our systems because
Mhm.
there's no guardrails. If you make a mistake in how you prompt it and what you ask it to do, who knows what it'll go off and do on its own. So this is where we're going. And so there's absolutely, in some situations, real reasons for concern about how you're implementing and using AI. But for the most part, what most people do is using these commercial services like ChatGPT from OpenAI or Anthropic's. They really try to protect your data. Like I can't put in secrets into the system. It will detect them and it will prevent me from sharing those things and so on and so forth. So there are all kinds of controls in place. Obviously, there's still risks, and you don't know what's going to happen. But generally speaking, if you have a paid subscription with those major companies, you're going to be fairly well protected.
Okay, so you're saying that if it's an enterprise level, for example, for companies, so most probably there are guardrails of for you, so you can
Yes,
trust this. You can trust the system. Okay,
yes.
so you spend your career
Nothing's
in trust.
100%.
Yeah.
Nothing is 100%.
Okay, of course, of course, of course,
Trust.
of
Let,
course.
let me
At least there.
define. Let me define trust for you.
Okay,
I define
we've
trust.
been talking about trust. Okay, define trust for AI.
So for anything, I define trust as acceptable uncertainty. So uncertainty is quite quantifiable. Acceptability is personal. So it's your choice. So what is acceptable uncertainty to you would be different from what it is to me.
Yeah, correct. It's
And
very
also
subjective. It
circumstantial.
depends.
Depends on the
How
circumstances.
much yeah, and how much risk can you take
Yes.
based on your situation. Moving on, so you've
Yes.
spent your career in trust innovation from PKI to blockchain and then behavioral systems. How was the definition of trust evolve in the age of AI? You said that uncertainty, right? Uncertainty. So
Acceptable
in the age
uncertainty.
of AI, it's still the same, or is it going to be there's some
There's no variation. That is the definition. However, how you create conditions for trust are also universal. There's a framework that I have. But in essence, you have to have governance, you have to have guardrails, as I said earlier, you have to have evidence. Okay. So I'm not going to get into details, but the point is there's a comprehensive framework for optimizing, analyzing, and optimizing conditions for trust. They're applicable for any type of trust, whether it's personal relationships or whether it's with AI. It's the same. The mechanisms within the framework are different, of course, between people, relationships, and with AI and with any other kind of system. But it's all based on information theory as to how can you rely on the information in a consequential way to take some action, take consequential action. So that's really what it's about. So we can engineer trust, is what I'm trying to say. And Reliably Me is designed to address that in a certain set of circumstances. We're built a trust enabling infrastructure, if you will, that is designed to build trust, establish and maintain trust between any entity, mostly people, but also between AI agents and people, between AIs themselves. So imagine a scenario where you're actually making commitments. Any party can make a commitment to any other party, and then as they keep their commitment, they get recognition. But the point is that they're not allowed to take any action until the prior commitment has been fulfilled successfully. Only then can they move on. So think about these AI agents, for example. The biggest risk is, I alluded to it with OpenClaw, whatever it's called now, is it can go on off and do stuff on its own. And how do you put guardrails on what is allowed and what is not allowed? And so you always need to have the human in the loop. I mean, I have this problem with my team members, my interns. We had a situation recently. They broke the system, and they don't know what happened because they don't know what they're doing. He's doing it for them, and they have no idea what they did. I said, well, look at all these database changes that you made. And they said, well, I don't recall. I said, well, what were you using an AI engine? Well, yeah. So they're just going out approving everything without checking what the AI is doing, and they messed up, and then they can't go back and figure out that they were responsible, that they did something. They didn't even realize they did it because the AI did it for them. So I mean, that's totally broken, and that's not how it should work, right? It's scary.
Yeah, the you mentioned about it. Now it becomes the accountability part. If I use AI, for example, your intern used AI and they just they just prompt it and then use that AI, who's accountable if something goes wrong or something was broken like yours? And that's one of the ethics, maybe ethical issues or some other some other guardrails that AI should evolve from. Because right now we don't have that governance right now.
No,
So
we don't.
everybody can do whatever they can. Every startup that has focusing on AI, they can do whatever they want because there are no guardrails, there are no laws or regulations or whatsoever to stop them from doing what they want to do. Especially what you're saying, the open claw, right? They can do whatever they can operate in your PC and they can do anything, right?
They do whatever they want, and they're doing stuff that they're not qualified to do. They don't understand what it's doing, and they just say, oh, it's getting done. No, don't get me wrong. I make the same mistake. I'm using it for things that I'm not qualified to do either. So I'm also guilty of that.
Uh-huh.
But I haven't broken anything yet because I have more common sense.
Okay.
I do verifications and checks and stuff like that. So I'm not a 20-year-old. So yeah, human judgment is extremely important in having effective AI implementations.
Yeah, so obviously you already have some from reliability experience on this. So organizations often rely those organizations who are not using Reliable Me, for example, they often rely on surveys and annual reviews to understand the performance. So why are those tools fundamentally incompatible with how modern teams actually work right now?
Because they're not evidence-based. They're subjective. So if you put out a survey. So here's how I've done, historically, I've been a manager in organizations, and this is how performance reviews have been done in the past, both as my performance reviews, and also those of others who reported to me. So what happens is you ask the person to do a self-evaluation based on certain criteria. Okay, they fill that out. Then as a manager, you look at it and say, okay, I have my ideas from what I recall. Seems reasonable. Or let me ask you about this. So this is just from what I remember. Right. And how am I going to dig through everything that happened? I can't, you don't track everything that happens. And so it's very is very subjective and very difficult to defend, quite frankly, for both parties, for the employee and for the manager who is doing the evaluations. But when you use a system like Reliably Me, where every commitment is being tracked, and the results of that, because when somebody says, okay, I've done something, they have to provide evidence as to what they've done.
Yeah.
And then when responding to the nudges, you actually know how they feel about things, what they're struggling with, what they need help with, how proactive they are. You can tell how they're responding to the questions. And so you have objective evidence of every significant activity that they're engaged in throughout the process. So quite frankly, you can intervene if they have issues and challenges proactively. And that gives you that kind of visibility at all times. For the performance reviews, it becomes really a trivial exercise in that before AI, it was very, very difficult.
So Reliably Me captures the commitments from everyday workflows through Slack or WhatsApp, right? So what does commitment data reveal that the traditional performance metrics completely miss?
So first of all, you know what they're committing to doing. What they gotta say, I will. They make promises. I will do this. I will do that. Or I promise to do this. Or whatever. Right? That's a statement. First person. Secondly, each commitment is associated with a badge. And the badge is both our policy that governs that commitment, but also it represents what is the nature of the commitment. Is it a hard skill that they're developing? Is it a soft skill? Is it communication? Is it teamwork? Or is it Node.js or MongoDB or whatever? So they can choose the badges that they want to earn so they can show evidence of the kind of work that they did, experiential learning or experience they have with that skill based on the badges that they've collected and the commitments that they made, and also the evidence of what they said they did to earn the badge. So when they provide proof. And then in addition to that, you've got the nudging, which is the qualitative data. Now, on the quantitative side, those badges are populating the individual's commitment portfolio. And that commitment portfolio is a collection of all their commitments that they've made successfully and unsuccessfully, all the badges that they've earned, their reliability rating, punctuality score, confidence factor, engagement points. So you can actually see and chart how engaged are people. Are they reliable? Is their reliability dropping off? Are they punctual? Are they confident to make longer term commitments? So these are all indicators. So there's a lot of rich information there. And that commitment portfolio actually belongs to the individual. So if they're working for somebody or they're at school or with a sports team or volunteering, every aspect of their lives, they're accumulating everything into their commitment portfolio that then they can filter and whatever, and then present if somebody asks for evidence, present just the subset of that data that particular party is interested in without revealing everything else. But the point is, it belongs to them, not to the organization.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting also because, as you also work in a corporate environment. So this annual reviews, performance reviews, sometimes even if you're doing good, the politics comes in the way for example, for promotion and all that. So
Yeah.
I'm just quite curious about how do you think Reliably Me will be able to at least 90% of the politics when it comes to performance evaluations and then the promotion of the individuals.
Totally. I think that it actually does bypass it. Let me give you an example of, I had a situation where I was doing a performance evaluation of somebody using the system that I described recently. And there was one aspect where the AI did not have enough data to provide an evaluation of a particular aspect of the person's performance. So it said, I don't know. I mean, it's not enough data to do that. So I put it in, my self-judgment, my own personal judgment. I put the evaluation in. And I got challenged by the individual, right? So I said, well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm not claiming, as I said to you, you're going to be evaluated by AI. In this case, I did it. So not fair. So let's give AI more context to be able to answer that question. Because the individual, I recorded the conversation, so in previous conversations, so I actually had evidence of what they claimed that they had done that's relevant for that evaluation. So I said, let's give it everything and then let it decide. I'm open to whatever. I can make mistakes. So we gave it to him and he got the higher evaluation.
Oh, nice.
And I was happy and he was happy. Everybody was happy.
Yeah, that's a great, real world example of what the AI can do. So how about in making commitments visible directly How does this improve using reliable me or the AI aspect of that?
Here's the thing. AI is useless without relevant, valid data. So the more relevant, valid data you give it, the more useful AI is. And so what reliably me does is it's a data generation infrastructure that generates a tremendous amount of, as I said, qualitative, quantitative data, evidence-based, objectively based on behavior, evidence of behavior and attitudes, right? So it's intrinsic. So it's if you're making an AI investment in your company and you want to improve your AI ROI, okay, you would want to find rich, valid data on the things that you want to use AI so that you can use AI and demonstrate its exponential value over what you've been able to do before. I can't think, and I'm sure there's other examples, but offhand, I can't think of another example where something is generating this kind of qualitative, quantitative data in real time in such large quantities, and it's valid. And that would feed AI. It's a godsend for AI. I designed it and developed it before AI, but now that we have AI, it's so much more powerful. It's absolutely critical for AI to have a tremendous amount of contextual data that's valid, currently relevant. And if you don't have that, you don't have your AI usage results are going to be mixed. And so the more afraid you are of giving it data, the worse the results are going to be.
So based on the data that you're getting, you have qualitative and then you have quantitative. So how does the behavioral data change affect the person? Is your system will be able to, for example, predict, okay, these are the qualities that you have right now, and that the company wanted you to be like this. Is
Right.
it also part of that?
Yes, absolutely. So you're tracking those big behavioral trends. So
Okay.
we're affecting behavior change through the commitments and the nudging. So it's designed to affect behavior change, and then we track behavioral outcomes. Okay, as a result, behavioral outcomes are a leading indicator of impact, the ultimate result. So you can see a trend. I mean, if behavior changes, your results are going to change as well.
Yeah, so it means, for example, because in an organization, you see there are people who talks a lot, but there's no talks a lot, but less, there's less output, and there are people who are quiet, but they have maybe 80% of the department they are doing all these things. So it will also manifest in this report that you have, right?
Yes, because it's subjective evidence. It's not just on how much you communicate through in meetings or in Slack or Teams, whatever it is that you're using, but also, and more particularly, is explicitly. You're being asked to do some things, and then you have to respond to those, and how you respond to them is evidence of your behavior. So it's subjective.
In an organization, for example, organization that is still starting AI, so there will be resistance. So resistance to AI is often framed as a fear of replacement, which is it's always
Yes.
like that, fear of replacement. What have you seen actually drives resistance, and how does trust reverse it?
So first of all, if you're afraid of being replaced and therefore not, or being a Luddite and trying to sabotage AI implementations, I think you're sabotaging your career. So that's the first thing. So that's so that if you don't trust AI, then management will trust you. It's okay to. It's also, I mean, the old adage, coined by President Reagan, was trust but verify, right? So, and it's so true with AI. You trust it to do certain things, but you got to keep track of what it's actually doing. You have to. It's the same thing with the employees who are using AI. You trust them to use it, you encourage them to use it, but then when you're getting what they call slop, stuff that's coming out of it that hasn't been gone through a human filter, just easily just dump it. And I do it too. I do it as well. We get lazy, right? Because we're busy with other things. It's not a good thing. People have to be held to account that they're showing evidence of having been in the loop in a significant way and applied good judgment. And so we use, for example, I'm not saying we're doing it perfectly, but I'm just giving an example. We actually have our team members make commitments that they're going to respond to nudges related to their use of AI twice a week. And
Okay.
so they receive a nudge, and it asks them, how they've used it, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, how could they improve their usage next time. And then we also have other nudges that ask them to, have you added, given it more context, and what were the results of that? What would you try next time? And that kind of stuff. So we're trying to get them to think about how they could use it more effectively based on reflection, and also proactively thinking, okay, now that I've learned this, how could I do? What more could I do?
That's yeah, it's a very profound explanation of what the system can do. So you also mentioned about that CHROs evolving into chief people and performance officers. So what new responsibilities that the role require in an AI enabled organization?
So yeah, so it's a good question. You see, my insight is that kind of like what I mentioned earlier. HR is probably afraid of AI, and it what
Yes,
and the reason is because they get their budgets based on the number of people that they're in the organization. So if AI
yeah,
is going to reduce the headcounts, then the budgets will go down. And if the companies are investing AI versus people, then the budgets are going to the AI implementations and IT departments.
correct.
If I were, if I were an HR manager, I'd be thinking, "Oh shit, what's what's my future look like?" Right? It'd be frustrating. But what I'm trying to say is, we can empower HR people, and we empower them by having them embrace the idea of being able to gather really valuable data that will support the AI implementations of the company. So suddenly they become a strategic resource for generating AI ROI.
That's a good take on that. That's a good take on that. But I think now it's not yet there, but I think it should be there in the future. Once all of this transformation becomes a standard for every organization, then we will have a different responsibilities, or an amplified responsibilities for the new CHROs, because they will become part of the a part of the process of
The solution,
implementing of
the actual
AI and the
solution.
solution. Yeah. So we talk about the CHROs for the CEOs and CFOs who are listening or watching right now. How does behavioral visibility help them connect human change to financial outcomes in a way they couldn't before?
Well, think about any department. Let's talk about sales, for example. So let's say in sales, are your what is the key success factor for sales if you're outbound sales? It's number of calls that you make. Essentially. So it's very difficult for, the top performers do what they do, and they do it well. They can always get better, but the uplift for the organization is going to be taking those middle performers, the ones that are not as good, and lifting them up. And so what is holding them back? Well, it comes down to basically behavior. I'm oversimplifying when I say it's just number of calls, but you can also track with, first of all, with Reliably Me, you can track their commitments. You can track how things are going in terms of their experiences, what customers have said, how they responded to certain situations. Get that in real time, every day. They respond to nudges, and you're getting a sense of what's going on, right? So you can adjust that. So first of all. Secondly, if they're being gone through training, you can help them. You can reinforce that training. You can say, okay, so you attended this 1 week training or whatever it is. We made that investment. How you applied it today, and did it make a difference, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can do that on a regular basis. It does two things. One is it refreshes their memory about what they learned. Secondly, you can also tell whether, so they can try applying it, or it also tells you whether it was worth it. Was it worthwhile? I mean, is it something they can apply? Are they having success with it? Right? So you'll get an ROI on the training. You'll get the improved behavior based on the training. Okay. You'll get them to stay committed because on track, because they're getting recognition for not only the end results, but actually the process of getting to those end results. Okay. So they're getting the badges, they're getting the recognition for all the right things that they're doing. I mean, that's it. And what that will do is the expression is a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So if you can do that with most of the people, even raise them a little bit, you're going to have better outcomes. I mean, it's just math
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
example.
Yes. So in terms of the if in terms of the transformation of the organization, so we talk about behavioral changes, we talk about commitment, accountability. So if every organization can see commitments, the follow through and the trust in real time, what would fundamentally change about leadership, culture, or power dynamics at work?
It'd be a huge culture change. There right now, organizations do not have robust accountability systems. People are not held to account in an explicit way. They are held to account in an implicit way, in a soft way. Obviously, everybody knows if somebody's reliable or not. There's hearsay and a reputation in the organization and so on. Things slip. It's normal for things to slip with everybody. But there isn't this explicit expectation that you're going to make explicit commitments, and it will be your commitment is not just something you say you're going to do, or it's on your, you come out of a meeting. You come out of a meeting, you have all these next steps for everybody, right? And
Yes.
everyone takes away their own. You don't know what happens after that. You kind of have to follow through. What we do is we just use our system along with AI to grab all the next steps for each individual and automatically send commitment requests to each of them coming out of the meeting. Automatically, just goes out. So you copy, paste, bang, gone. So there's no ambiguity. Everybody has their commitment request. They have to accept it. If they don't accept it, you can see and find out why they didn't accept it, because they always have a choice. You have to give people a choice. You have to empower them as to whether they want to make the commitment or not. And it's always their choice. And when they're going to get it done. You don't tell them when you must get it done. So you can suggest, but ultimately it's their own choice as to when. And then they're being evaluated on actually when they actually did it relative to when they said they were going to do it. But so they're being accountable, they're being empowered, and they're being held to account for their choices. So the culture change is huge, because there's hardly any organizations that enforce accountability, even in compliance scenarios where there is a safety compliance issue or other kinds of regulatory compliance. You have, what happens is everybody kind of just goes through the motions. HR puts out the training. Then they send out expect you to do it. If you've gone through the training, you check mark. There might be a survey that comes out later, and that's it. Nobody cares after that. So whether the person is actually staying compliant and maintaining that attitude and the required behavior, nobody's tracking it.
Okay, so you mean that, for example, most of the organizations works like this right now. Okay, these are the KPIs. You need to finish all these trainings on time, so we'll have 100%, completion within the end of the month. So this numbers does not really equate into behavioral changes or cultural changes. So based on reliable me, will you be able to, will you be able to use that your platform to be able to, initiate the culture change or initiate the behavioral changes of the individual or the department?
Yes, absolutely. Ours is the most cost-effective way to affect behavior change.
Okay, that's very interesting. It was very good. It's very good platform because you talk about, qualitative and quantitative. Most of the technologies that we have right now is more on the technology side, efficiency and all this, trackable data. You can track it by the numbers. But the qualitative data, it's very hard to track. You don't know if somebody is really improving their perspective. You don't know from being a negative person becomes a positive person, or from being, just non-engaging or just going to work to being an engaging person. So if you're going to be able to capture that in that system, both of those sides, it's going to be a holistic approach in AI transformation. It's very, very timely. And also, what I saw is, even though you are a technology guy, you have this technology, you always go back to culture, commitment, and human and people. Why is it? Why is it that?
Well, the reason is that the whole purpose of why I conceived of Reliably Me is to help people, to empower them, to help them be recognized for their authentic self and social worth, to help them be trusted by strangers based on objective evidence of them making their social contracts and fulfilling those social contracts and their track record of having done that. And that was the whole purpose of it. It was all about using technology to help people.
Yeah, it's a good, very, very good point. So using creating a technology to help people, not to replace them.
Absolutely.
Right?
We're not an app. We're an infrastructure that mediates the relationship between people. It facilitates those commitments and the follow-throughs and all that to maintain those relationships and that follow-through. Right? So it allows people to engage in a very simple and quick way via SMS or text messaging or WhatsApp, on the fly. And it works equally well in an office environment or construction sites remote or remotely, like our teams all over the world through Slack and all that. So it's equally effective for any scenario, but it's quick and easy. and has huge benefits. It's just kind of a lightweight trust infrastructure that is very flexible. And it's an API. It's a smart API, so it integrates with almost any application. So intelligently, so it can be plugged in to Salesforce, into whatever, Jira and GitHub, whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
using, and it can enforce accountability. And so you can track what commitments were being made, that somebody's going to do something, and did they do it? And then you can find out what the issues were in trying to do it or getting it done, and then you'll know, have evidence that it was done, and then you could approve it, and that'll be recorded, and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so there's one comment also in my previous podcast in his or her, I forgot, her episode. There's one comment that, that whatever we're saying about human, focusing on human for the AI transformation, and he commented that everything that is AI transformation right now, the company only focused on the transformation, on the money side, the financial side. They don't care about the people. But here, I have you. You are the CEO. You are the founder of a company. But still, you care about the humans and the individuals as well. So for those viewers or listeners that we have right now, what is it that not every company will be thinking like that? What is it from your perspective that will make them, at least, change their perspective or just reconsider of saying that, okay, not all companies will be more on the financial side. They also care about the people. Coming from a founder like you.
So what I would say is that we are holding, from a financial side, these are the outcomes. These are the impacts, the ultimate result. Have you made more sales? Are we more profitable? Those metrics, right? The quantifiable metrics. The issue is that a couple of things. First of all, when you don't, when you so everybody's struggling. Do it any way you want, just get the result, right?
Yes.
I don't care how you do it, just get it done. So first of all, it shows a lack of care and nurturing. But secondly, a lot of those ultimate results are not necessarily in your control, and you're being held accountable for them. So in other words, to close a sale, it's not necessarily, you can say all the right things, but there's so many factors that the customer is using to decide whether they're going to make that particular purchase or another one, if any at all. And so it's not in your, a lot is not in your control, right? And that's why it's a numbers game in many cases. The more doors you knock on, the higher the chance that somebody will buy, kind of thing, right? That philosophy. So that, first of all, a lot of it's out of your control. So it's not fair. Okay. Secondly, you're not nurturing and cultivating the people's ability to be successful, right? By ensuring that they're modifying their behavior that will empower them to be more successful. And so that's being missed. I mean, yeah, we're going through the motions of training and that kind of thing, and meetings and whatever it is, rallying and rally things, kind of offsites and stuff like that. But in reality, we don't have a systematic way of holding the people's hands, if you will, through their journey, and helping them and encouraging them and helping them, motivating them to actually modify their behavior so they will produce better results.
That's a very good take on that. So at least I have one founder and CEO right now who is telling us that not every company is all about the financial side. So there are companies also that cares about the people to be able to be successful in their jobs. Okay, so looking ahead, 3 to 5 years from now, what will separate companies that successfully scale AI from those that quietly abandon it? If there are companies who will abandon it.
Well, those who abandon it will be abandoned, but
Yeah.
that adopt it in a serious way are going to be competitive. They can be competitive in several ways. First of all, they are going to be more productive. They're going to have better quality employees that do retain. Now they're not going to keep as many, obviously, but they are going to retain those that can apply the judgment, the skills, the cognitive skills to be able to manage the AIs. Because really, what you're doing with AIs, you're managing them. You're an orchestrator. You're making sure it's a management function, supervisory management function, really. So they'll have those skills and that cognitive capacity for success. So you have better quality employees. You'll be able to move a lot faster, stay relevant. I mean, there's also that really, really important aspect of this, is that agility and the ability to constantly learn and adapt is critically important. And it's so difficult for larger organizations to do. But those organizations are going to be the ones that survive, essentially. They'll be able to pivot quickly. They'll be able to, you know, Gretzky, famous Canadian hockey player, is known for saying, I asked him, what's the key to your success? He says, I skate not to where the puck is, but to where the puck is going to be.
Correct, correct, correct.
So right now, things are moving so quickly on a weekly basis. There are major announcements, major changes every week. And so if you're not nimble enough to see what the trend is, what's going on, and like I just talked to you about OpenClaw, which is the latest, very, very important and significant development in the AI space, and start understanding what are the implications of that, and what are the pros and cons for us, and how can we leverage these trends to our advantage, competitive advantage. And because we have to be thinking in terms of exponential growth now. We're no longer thinking about linear traditional growth patterns. And we'll be also be increasingly, this is another thing, going a little bit further out. So this is for survival through this period of turbulence and change. That's the first change. But after that, the equation is going to change because the measures of success of a company are going to change as well. The economics are going to change. The cost of everything is going to go down. So think about AI agents and AI robots doing a lot of the work, most of the work, in fact, that humans do. But they're fixed costs. There's very little variable cost there, right? And so once you make that investment for scale, and they can start, make the investment, and then they actually produce for scale, so they can justify their capital investment, right? The cost of everything goes down, and so that puts pressure. I mean, that could increase profits, but it will also ultimately put pressure on profits because of the competitive environment, because everybody's costs are
Yeah,
being
yeah,
used for
yeah.
less money, right? So it's kind of this race to the bottom, if you will. So the equation is to what success looks like and for whom, from a broader economic perspective, not just for financial, but brand value, all the intangibles, all the human things. That's going to become a lot more important. And so over the next 5 to 10 years, the economics as to what we consider how we measure success, I think is going to be very different.
Okay, that's very good. You touch all the aspects of the transformation from AI and into the future. Okay, thank you very much for all the insights. I enjoyed a lot and I learned a lot from you also. We now move on to the rapid 10x questions that I'm going to ask you. So we will have 10 questions about your AI daily, or what are your perspectives about AI. So question number one: what's one tool you actually use every day? AI tool.
Comet. Perplexity's Comet is my new default browser, and its
Uh-huh.
assistant is what I use all the time, and it does a lot. I delegate to it.
Okay, that's good. So what one task AI has already 10x in your life?
So just from idea to artifact, just instant. Like you have an idea for a new website, or you have an idea for a new education program, and just bang, it just creates everything for. Okay. A simple example every day is, every week we have to do a team meeting. So I actually prepare my agenda 5 to 10 minutes before the meeting, but with AI agents taking a look at the previous meeting, what happened notes, looking at all the communications since then in the past week, and it creates an agenda 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting for me.
And that's good. That's good. That's good. So what's one human skill AI can never replace?
Judgment.
I agree with that. If you could automate one annoying thing forever, what would it be?
It's this coordination tasks. All the friction of thinking and finding what the source of information is, and being able to take the information and move it from one place to another, fill out a form, all those things that take up a tremendous amount of time. Performance evaluations, for example, all those things that take a tremendous amount of time, and are hard to do, and they don't add a lot of value. That's
Yeah.
process.
So what's the biggest misconception about AI right now?
It replaces that it's smart and replaces thinking.
What advice would you give someone who wants to become 10x starting today?
Learn how to verify outputs. I mean, if you want to move,
Yeah,
if you want to move fast, yeah, you can move fast.
but you still have to verify if it's accurate enough to be able, to pass.
Which direction are you going to move in?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, for example, looking back, what would you tell your younger self about the future?
Leverage beats effort.
What's one book, podcast, research that shaped your thinking about AI or innovation?
The Moonshots podcast with Peter Diamandis.
What do you like about the Moonshot podcast?
They're highly optimistic, visionary thought leaders from various disciplines in the tech startup world who have a lot of insight into what trends are, where they're going. And so if you're thinking about where you'd have to take your company in the future, think about what they're talking about, because they come out twice a week with a podcast that's about an hour and a half, and it's extremely insightful and it's inspiring, quite frankly.
Okay. So if you had to bet one AI trend that will be massive in 3 years, what is it?
I would say accountable agentic systems with memory and governance.
In one sentence, what does X mean to you personally?
I would say compressing the distance between a good idea and a trusted outcome.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you very much for that very insightful, entertaining, fascinating, and enjoyable conversation that we had for the last hour. So for our viewers or our watchers right now who can be your future clients or somebody who wanted your advice, how can they reach you?
I think the best way to reach me is through LinkedIn. So it's Alex Todd, and it's reliably me. So you can find me quite easily. I'm based in Toronto, Canada. So you can find me easily on LinkedIn. Happy to respond to any messages there. If you can visit our website if you like, also at reliablyme.com. And we have a generic email address, info@reliablyme.com. Happy to answer questions that way as well. So looking forward to engaging with anybody interested.
Yeah, thank you very much again for your time. And